You got to get comfortable with the fact that it might not work. I think that's the hardest thing. We all have a fear of failure, don't we, to some extent. But I kind of live by I can deal with failure, but I can't deal with what if. I think what if is what eats people up.
I love that.
Yeah, and having done a lot of career coaching, you speak to most people and a lot of them, there is a dream or a pivot or something that sits underneath it. Yeah. And they're living with what if. And I think that's so sad.
Andy MacAskill, welcome to the Purpose-Led Leadership Podcast. Delighted to have you on. You've been on mine, I've been on yours, but I think this is the first in-person one we've done, right?
I think you're right. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me in. Really good. I always enjoy our conversations.
Good to see you. For those that don't know you, and you've got over 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, so most people do, what do you actually do? Who are you?
Yeah, who am I? I'm still trying to work that out at 43 years old, in fairness. I'll update you when I find out. But I guess from a career perspective, I've got one primary mission, which is to end career-based misery, right? And that's been a mission for the last 20 years or so, which has led me to work in career coaching, led me to work in executive search and executive recruitment, write books to help people get hired and speak and generally debate the world of work, careers and hiring as a whole. So that's the type of work we get involved with. It's really good fun.
You've done some amazing stuff. I'm really interested. I can sort of dive straight into it because obviously you've had a very successful career as a kind of senior leader in the recruitment space, but then you kind of did your own thing, which kind of blew up on LinkedIn quite well, or very well. And now you're back in as a CCO, aren't you? So really interested in that transition because you've kind of had both ends of the spectrum there, haven't you?
We have, yeah. And I think it's important, you talk about careers as a whole, like you don't have to be set on one path at one period of time. And in my experience, whatever decision I've made, there's always been people telling me it was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left accountancy to get into recruitment in the first place, people were saying, why are you doing that? I then moved to London. And my friends from down south were going, oh, London, no, you don't want to be up there.
Yeah.
Crazy place. We then moved to Australia. They were like, what are you going to Australia for? Like people are going to doubt whatever you do. Yeah. And certainly when we set up our own business, people were like, yeah, that's risky.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to just go with the internal compass and do what makes sense to you and back your intuition.
Do you know what? That's the psychology of that is actually really important and really valuable. I think in this world, we're kind of indoctrinated by all sorts of different advice and content and that kind of stuff. And I think leaning into this and understanding that actually making your own choice and the people you surround yourself with and the information that you're receiving, it plays a big part in your trajectory, your choices. How best is it to navigate that? Because it's not even if even your friends or family are saying one thing and you want to do another. I mean, how do you build that kind of internal ability, that compass to know what to do, what that's right for you? Would you say?
You got to get comfortable with the fact that it might not work. I think that's the hardest thing. We all have a fear of failure, don't we? To some extent. But I kind of live by I can deal with failure, but I can't deal with what if. And I think what if is what eats people up.
I love that.
Yeah. And having done a lot of career coaching, you speak to most people and a lot of them, there is a dream or a pivot or something that sits underneath it. Yeah. And they're living with what if. And I think that's so sad.
I prefer to regret something I've done than something I haven't done.
Exactly that.
In most cases. And I think this is the Purpose-Led Leadership Podcast. We'll move straight into that. And I think there's a lot of people in this world that are going through the motions. This is not judging. This is my observation around they're going to work or they're going to their business. They're picking up the paycheck. They're spending it. They kind of eat, sleep, rave, repeat. There's no kind of meaning behind that. And I always think that purpose is something that moves and shakes and evolves. But unless you've got a centralized reason or meaning or why for doing things, I think generally life can pass you by.
It could definitely pass you by, and resentment builds, which is like poison. It's not very good for you at all. We've all had it at various points.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with that philosophy. I think that it's all about aligning who you are with what you do and getting comfortable with that. And when you do that, good things tend to happen anyway. Like from my perspective, the more I've focused on the mission element to it, the more the commercial outcomes and the business growth and success has happened anyway.
Well, I think that plays out in your career, in people's career choices, as your business owner, kind of all facets of life, right? And I think your career misery thing, is that born out of your own experiences, other experiences. It's almost like kind of like you wrote your book, you did your executive career job thing. It almost feels now you're kind of in a position where your purpose has been created through your experiences, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And there's data to back it up. If you look at Gallup polls or whatever, the UK is terrible for it.
Yeah.
I think 80% of the workforce in the UK are somewhat dissatisfied with their working lives.
Right.
But feel trapped. It's become part of their identity. They're a partner in a law firm. That's how they introduce themselves to people. It's how they carry themselves. And the idea of it becoming their identity and breaking away from that is like a self-imposed prison. So I think it's a tricky thing.
Yeah. So the transition from kind of executive career jump, which I think your wife still runs, to then going back into Fraser Dove. I want to talk about that. How was that for you in terms of? Did you have any kind of like, not reservations, but kind of like, it's almost, you went from one extreme to the other and back again. It's just, for me, it's a really interesting and very, not brave, but kind of like, you just made the choice that you felt was right for you. But I'm sure you felt judged by these decisions or not, or how did it play out for you?
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't an easy decision at any point.
Yeah.
I mean, Career Jump was born out of the fact that we had a mission for 5 years in a recruitment company that ultimately didn't work and had a bad ending.
Yeah.
And so initially it was as much about helping other people that were going through that, but also helping myself process that. And I know you've had some major inflection points in your journey as well, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
You do need to give yourself some time, don't you? So I think the self-employment bit initially was kind of, right, I just need to let myself breathe here, get involved with a range of projects.
Yeah.
And let myself process the fact that particular 5 years didn't result in what I was hoping it would do. But then good stuff started to happen. You start to get hooked into it. It was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so through sheer timing, what we were offering was something that was of need.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the longer that went on, I was working the majority of the time from my dining room table. I really missed the collaboration with colleagues.
Yeah.
Really missed it. It's amazing how important that is to me.
Yeah.
I love working with other people directly. And coaching's one type of relationship, but I mean like going with a group of people on a mission together as a tour of duty. I think that's a great feeling.
Yeah.
So I'd worked with Fraser Dove on a consultancy basis, kind of doing some training around LinkedIn and retainer selling and this type of stuff. And eventually the kind of stars aligned, the opportunity came up and decided to make the leap.
I think it's really interesting because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what do recruitment consultants really want apart from money? But it doesn't matter whether it's a recruitment consultant. I think that it's interesting. Money is important, but there's been loads of studies on this. It's probably the third most important thing. But in your description there, I feel as if you probably don't have a lot as a business owner, but you're the sort of individual that wants to learn, grow and develop and be around people that can enhance you. And I think that was probably a part of the decision as well, no?
Definitely part of it. And I think recruitment consultants, a lot of them are financially driven. I think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I do think that has changed since we entered the industry.
Yeah.
A lot is made of the latest generation, and I think they're unfairly judged at times for not being as driven or being entitled or whatever. That's not been my experience. They are as motivated and sales orientated as we were when we joined the industry.
Yeah.
But they need to feel meaning in what they're doing.
Yeah.
They won't just do it for the paycheck.
No.
There needs to be another layer of purpose. We're on the Purpose-Led podcast or meaning behind it.
Yeah.
And so I think what a lot of recruitment companies are struggling with at the moment is they're still managing people in a type A fashion.
Yeah.
Purely around the financials, the incentives, the status.
Yeah.
When actually a large part of that employee population want more than that. It needs to make sense to their head, their heart and their wallet is the expression I use.
No, absolutely. I love that. And I think recruitment companies bang on about culture, but if you looked at 99 websites out of 100, they all say the same thing. So how do you create a world-class culture? I think it is understanding that everyone's slightly different. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But things like vulnerability, empathy that's come into the fore, a lot more compassion, the softer skills, the archetypal old-school one-dimensional leader will call bullshit on that. But the importance of, back in our day, it was kind of like the employer ask the person to run through a brick wall, and they would, because it was just the way it was done. Make 100 calls, okay. It's kind of like, just, I'm not like advocating, it's just the way it was, but that's completely changed as well. So what's your experience has been with the kind of the change in kind of leadership around soft versus hard skills, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I think you've got to hit the head, the heart, and the wallet. They're the three things that I think about. So to motivate people, I think from a head point of view, I think people need to feel like they're learning.
Yeah.
They need to feel like they've got clarity on what they're supposed to be doing, and they can get their head around the task and what's expected of them. From a heart point of view, I think they need to feel a deeper meaning and purpose with the day-to-day work. And there's personal purpose and also the company purpose, and those two value sets need to align appropriately. Yeah. And then I think you need to over-reward people that deliver high performance and look after their wallet as well.
Yeah.
And if you're hitting those three boxes, you're in a good space. So that's kind of how I think about it. And you used a really important word, which is compassion. And I think that is part of the key, mate, because there's been a lot of talk about empathy, and empathy's okay, but empathy is me understanding why you're feeling a certain way. And quite often, old Andrew would have then used my empathy to understand how you're feeling to manipulate you to do what I wanted to do.
Right. Interesting.
I think compassion is genuinely taking action to help that person based on where they're at. It's empathy in action.
Yes.
In a positive,
solution
forward way.
Focus, not just listening but it's not helping, is it?
No. Compassion is action. So I think there is a shift from empathy to action to compassion.
Old Andrew has triggered me, for want of a better word, to look at myself around what old Chris was like as a leader to what I am now. I'm a completely different man, right? I mean, I built a £25 million business, 100 people, but I think a lot of that was drive and everything else, and motivation. But I don't think I had things like empathy, compassion, and vulnerability back then. Now I'm a completely different person. So what's your journey been like as a leader? How have you changed and adapted? You talk about old Andrew. Give me some traits of old Andrew versus new Andrew.
Well, I turned up in London best part of 20 years ago to work in city-based recruitment.
Right.
You know what that was like.
I can imagine, yeah.
And the same as you, I kind of assimilated to that environment. And my view was, well, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. And so it was quite an alpha environment. It was quite an ego-driven environment. And so I played up to that character because that at the time, based on my limited experience and based on where the world was at, was what I thought I had to be to be successful.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? You talk about identity and kind of like, kind of moving to personal brand and leadership. I think the best, if I was to describe the most effective approach, is being yourself. And I think I did adopt a role as a leader. I put on a suit. I became this kind of stoic warrior. But I think people can see through that these days, right? But a lot of leaders, I don't think are truly themselves or are that kind of person. What's your experience? Because you talk a lot about the good, bad, and ugly of leadership. What have you seen in your travels?
Well, I have a lot of empathy for leaders because I think it is a really difficult role, genuinely. And I think part of the challenge is a lot of the advice people get is contradictory. And I've struggled with this as well. I'm a big reader, big podcast listener, same as you. I really believe in self-development. But a lot of the times you feel like you're getting advice that's diametrically opposed to each other.
Right,
so to give you some examples of that, one thing people talk a lot about at the moment is the importance of vulnerability, right? I don't disagree with that at all. I think vulnerability is important. We don't have to be the bulletproof.
Yeah. But you can't be vulnerable every minute of the day either, can you?
Well, no, because also what's really important is delivering psychological safety.
Yeah.
So if I was entirely vulnerable and open about everything that was going on with me, stuff that was going on in the business at times, at scale, there would be no psychological safety. So this is, and another good example is people say, you have to adapt your style based on the person that you're speaking to. Probably good advice, right? Like that's good management advice. But equally, on the other side, people say, you have to be authentic. Well, it's how can I be authentic if I'm also adapting my style?
Yeah.
And these types of things just get in your head. And I think when you're leading people, quite often you just feel conflicted and confused around what should I be doing here? Because I'm absorbing all this content, reading all these books.
Yeah.
And actually, in amongst all of that, what you've really got to do is be more intuitive.
Right.
Because there is no model. No. There is no magic bean that you can take. There is no one YouTube video you can watch or podcast you can listen to that will solve it. You've got to be really intuitive. You've got to be true to yourself. Try and make decisions that offer transparency and that lead in a way that you'd want to be led, right? Like that's kind of where it all lands. But
yeah, that's good. But also I think as well, it's about being a human being and accepting and being cool with the fact that you might fuck it up sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
regularly.
And admit that and say sorry or whatever. You know, I think that goes a long way as well, right?
Yeah. No. Oh, so I mean, sorry and thank you are probably the two most important phrases in the leadership playbook, aren't they?
Yeah. I try to teach my kids to say it. Most adults don't bloody say it, do they?
No, I know. It's so true, though. Yeah, so true.
But actually, that kind of respect level, I think if I'm interviewing somebody and they are quite complimentary and they are quite, or they are aware of their faults, and it's those kind of skills that I think are massively underplayed. I think.
Yeah, and taking ownership. I think people really respect people that take ownership. I like working with people that take ownership of all levels.
What's been some of your biggest leadership challenges then, and any time you might have, for want of a better term, fucked it up?
Oh, geez, we could have a couple of podcasts on
only got an hour.
It's so true, though. I mean, the biggest one for me was thinking that I had to have the answer to everything. That was a big problem. And I also had a real problem with dominating the room and dominating the space.
Right.
So I worked with a coach on this in the end, which was really helpful because I would go into a team meeting, stand up in front of the whiteboard, get overexcited about the latest idea that I had, solve a problem in the business, draw it all out and expect everyone to get it, follow me and go and do it.
I've been there a few times, but do it even better than I could.
Yeah. And so I wasn't giving people space to contribute, and I wasn't giving them ownership of the solution either. So what the coach said to me, and this was a really good tip, was in team meetings from now on, I want you to speak last.
Right. Love that.
Every time. And there was a story about Nelson Mandela's father who used to go to tribal gatherings and he was the chief. And Nelson Mandela said, what he learnt from his father from that was that he always spoke last.
Yeah.
They all sat in a circle so they could all see each other and engage and everyone felt respected. So there was no hierarchy.
Brilliant.
But also he always spoke last. So this coach had me put a picture of Nelson Mandela as my screensaver on my laptop.
Forcing you to do it.
Reminding me when I'm going in there, like, with that kind of high energy solution mindset, actually take a step back, try and speak last.
I think that's so powerful because obviously that engenders and encourages the people in the room to be creative and you're not saving or rescuing them then. But I think even in conflict or when you're negotiating, the ability to shut up, say nothing, pause, or even if you have an emotional reaction to something with your wife or it's kind of that ability to just stop I think it's another underestimated skill. It's huge actually.
Yeah. So that's big screw ups. Yeah. A lot of the content I write on the hiring side comes from my own failures in some hiring and people side in the past as well. Ironically, we're supposed to be hiring experts.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I am a hiring expert to some extent, but there's no doubt that I've made hiring errors throughout as well. I think that's and that's why I still believe in the potential in the future for the recruitment executive search world, is that hiring is such a painful pinch point for the vast majority of leaders. Most people have never been trained on it, don't know how to run good processes, don't know what to look for, and repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
What are the common mistakes then in the hiring equation? This is going to be quite a long answer actually. From the candidate's perspective, what are they doing that isn't conducive to a successful outcome? The client and also the recruitment consultant, those three C's, candidate, client and recruitment consultant, where are they what the do's and don'ts? It's quite a long question. But
yeah, it is. Okay, where should I start?
Well, whatever you're comfortable with there.
Okay, well, let's start with the hiring team, right? The client. There's that particular C in this particular equation.
Yeah.
So, and let's use commercial roles as an example, because most people, no matter what they're in, can kind of understand and process that quite quickly. So the most common challenge with hiring commercial people is, number one, you hire on CV but fire on behaviour.
Yes.
So you hire on people that have a track record.
100%.
But then fire on behaviour. The problem with that in any sector is that a lot of previous track record is timing.
Yeah.
Is success. A lot of success is timing. And I've learned that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had playbooks that worked at a particular point in my life that I've then tried to replicate elsewhere and they failed. Because it was timing. You know, I was doing LinkedIn at that time. I was doing HubSpot at that time.
Yeah. But isn't it also, to interject a little bit, not necessarily what the candidate's done, it's what they can do?
Yes. Well, that's exactly where that shift needs to be.
Yeah.
So rather than looking too much into the past, that should get you in the interview room. You should be looking at the future predictors of success, defining what are the future predictors of success for a role, and then assessing those.
Yeah.
So that's one challenge. The other challenge with simple hiring processes, we might have spoken about this before, but is that currently it's a bit arse about face. It's the wrong way around. So a typical hiring process, phase one, hiring manager will go in and interrogate the candidate.
Yeah.
If they're good, they'll then put them in, and phase two, there'll be like a 50-50 exchange. And if they like them at phase three, they'll then sell to the candidate to try and close them. And, you know, and regularly leaders like you and I will get called in by managers saying, we really like this lady, Chris, can you come and close them for us? Right?
Yeah.
Actually, what you need to do is flip that on its head. So the hiring team should be selling in the first interview. Judging the candidates based on the questions they ask rather than the answers they give, you know, really like
absolutely.
selling. Then if they like them, moving them to a point whereby the candidate's selling back to them, which is easier to close and more effective as a strategy. So a few things there, future predictors, reversing when you're selling versus when you're expecting the candidate to sell. There's some good things that we need to look at.
That's really good.
So from a candidate perspective, we ran some data which showed that actually at a senior level, the candidate that most wanted the role and most needed it was 8 times less likely to get offered the job than the candidate that least wanted the role. And that was like a really frustrating thing when we were running Career Jump. Because we're like, we've got these people that have got skills and are really keen on getting hired and are not getting offered. And so you go, okay, well, why is that? And it was, the reason is because they weren't treating it as a two-way process. So they were going in, telling the interviewer what they wanted to hear or what they believed they wanted to hear, BSing their way through certain answers, and not being open and transparent. Whereas the candidates who didn't care whether they got the job or not, they would go into an interview and they would qualify the opportunity.
Right.
They would be way more honest. So a candidate who didn't care whether they wanted the role, if you said, why did you leave that role? They would say, I had a fallout with the boss. It was a nightmare. It all blew up one day in the boardroom and I stormed out. A candidate that wanted the job, you say to them, why did you leave that role? They'll say, I was just ready for a new challenge.
Yeah, they're not being real.
They're not being real.
Yeah.
And so the biggest challenge for candidates is being brave enough to be real.
Yeah. Because that's what you want. If I was to choose those two based on that, I'd obviously go with the first one personally, you know, but as a hirer. You know.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you go, well, I've had faults as well. I've had my own journey. I can work with that person. And it kind of shows a growth mindset. So that's big. And the waffling is a big problem too. Yeah. So a lot of candidates use interviews almost to air their knowledge, hoping that the right answer's in there somewhere, and don't keep it two-way and just waffle for way, way too long. And in this world, we need, you know, people are looking to hire people that make the complex simple. Yeah. And if you're overcomplicating your answers, you're basically saying that's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can put that down to nerves a little bit as well. But I think that let's move on to the recruitment consultant then as well. And then we'll do the rest of that. Yeah.
So recruitment consultant, I think the biggest problem in the hiring process, and again, it's a little bit like the desperate candidate versus the one that is more objective, is overselling the candidates at shortlist. See this all the time.
Yeah.
Like we present 5 candidates and we sell them like they're all perfect human beings.
Like the unicorns.
Yeah. I mean, how much trust do you reckon the client has in our assessment?
Yeah.
0. Like we're saying they're all, we found 5 impeccable humans.
Yeah.
We'd be far better off building trust with the client by saying, here's the attributes, here's the risks.
Yes.
Here are the challenges, here are the down points, here is...
I think that's really important in terms of like kind of moving on to communication. It's how we actually sell. If we're just flopping an email over with a massive sort of long chapter of superlatives, that's not ideal either. As an example, I was dealing with a client a couple of weeks ago. I'm normally more strategic, but it was an issue with an offer that the candidate had 4 interviews, and the client phoned me up and said, I'm really pissed off because my client's he's offered my candidate, but they've offered 15 or 20 grand under, and they just sent him an email. And I was like, all right. So the client was pissed off that their client sent an email offer, which is right. But then the onus is on the consultant to make sure that they're managing that process. But I think how we communicate is really important, and how we introduce stuff is really important as well, right?
Yeah, trust. That's why I like fixed fees.
Right.
Because I think part of the reason clients do that is they know we're on 22% of the number.
Yeah, right.
And so for them at that point in the process, that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So
I don't want Chris to come back and say we need another 10 grand, but which he's going to, because that's another 2,200 in his pocket on 22%. Whereas if you have a fixed fee for 30 grand for the project,
well, exactly, it's the a pond that you fish in. If you're pitching retained and exclusive, that doesn't happen, right? So it's how you position yourself, I think, isn't it? And the client shouldn't do that to you out of respect for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
But worth it for anyone that hasn't tried it, playing around with fixed fee recruitment rather than a percentage, because then there's no. They don't do the sum in their head. They just think that's the thing. Well, they know it's the fee, but also when I come back to you as the client and I say the candidate needs another 20 grand, Chris, you know that's not me just trying to bump up my fee. My fee's the same. So it just removes that financial conflict from the offer management.
Yeah. I think that's right. But on the offer management point, I think at the start of a process, you need to have it watertight and controlled. But when it's the offer, I would encourage that's either done in person with you or on a Zoom with you as well. Or certainly the candidate and the client need to be speaking more, because I think the candidate's less likely to go elsewhere, and kind of like, I think you need to bring the parties closer.
It's a nice way to do it
in that situation, because I think sometimes having too much control towards the end of the process, you see the obvious benefits, but sometimes I think that you're sort of risking that the candidate wouldn't mind letting you down, but that wouldn't want to let the employer down potentially. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think that's really well said. I like the idea of kind of that triumvirate of going through it. I mean, there's a reason brokers exist, Chris, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's whether we're buying houses, whether we're looking at financial projects, it's because these are emotional topics. And so you need a third-party broker to take the emotion.
Totally, mate. And this whole bias judgment thing, I think there's been some research done as well where a lot of employers, they don't necessarily hire on best fit sometimes in terms of the semantics of a CV and a JD. Sometimes they go on feeling and how they feel with the candidate as well. And sometimes it's out of your jurisdiction. You can't do anything about that, right? So I think that's why it's important to not just match a CV with a JD, but understand the intrinsic behaviours of a business and what the drivers are and that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of consultants don't do that.
No, well, I think you've touched on it really well there. Actually, a lot of problems at the back end are because the discovery briefing at the start wasn't good enough. And things going wrong 12 weeks later, you can pretty much track it back to the fact, did you do an in-depth job intake where you're getting into those factors you've described? Have you created a search matrix with the criteria that they're after, got them to sign off on it, assessed everyone against that, refer back to that throughout the process? I think we're often excited to get a new job on.
Oh, mate, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And we're just like, what do you want? And then I need a head of IT in Birmingham for 80 grand with this experience. We're like, no problem. We've got loads. Leave it with me.
Yeah.
That should be an hour to 90 minutes of curiosity and investigation and in-depth, and sometimes what they think they want and what they need are different, and challenging and flexing. And,
so right.
But we don't.
We get
too excited.
We get delusions of grandeur. A great role isn't a great role, isn't just a great JD. A great role in a great business is where you've got control. You can see the buying intentions of the and you've got a process locked down. So you spend an hour on the phone with the client. And what I tend to say is, if it's not retained or exclusive, right, Mr. Client, we spent an hour on the phone. We know exactly what you want. Thank you for this opportunity to work with you. What we're going to do now is send you an email with a JD on it. And if you want to make any changes or we missed anything, let us know. But the email is going to say when you're going to first interview, when we're going to do the CV review, second interview, offer and pay. If you we'll email that back to you. If you send that back to us, we'll start working on it straight away. What I mean by that is you have a service level agreement all the way through the process. And if the client's pinching on that, it's about qualifying. I think it's about qualifying clients out, not in. Positioning yourself as they almost need to convince you to work with them kind of mentality.
Yeah, the with or without you energy is good. I was talking about this in the office before coming over here randomly.
Right, yeah.
And I was saying, look, the reason that we want to continue to BD at scale, the ultimate vision I have for all of you is where that you've got an abundance of opportunity to the point that you don't have to ever accept people that don't buy into what you're doing, aren't willing to follow a great process,
100%,
and aren't engaging you in the right way. And at times we were in a tough market last year in life sciences. It was tough. And part of the challenge of tough markets is you take on work and accept behavior through a scarcity mindset that doesn't serve you.
No.
So keep BDing, even if you've got an existing client base. You want to keep BDing to ensure
100%.
To ensure that you can say no to people that aren't working the way you want them to.
And this is the thing, right? I don't care whether you got one roll on or 101. As you rightly say, you have to keep that conveyor belt going. And people don't see that but there's so many agencies or consultancies out there that say they're specialists, but they're actually not. Like I speak to people. I'm a financial services recruiter. I was like, really? What you do? Banking, hedge funds, private equity? It's impossible. So I think it's about how we introduce ourselves, and I think it's things like name dropping and knowing the projects and the people. And for example, life sciences is massive. I mean, sure, I would guess that you guys break it down. You've got segments of segments, right?
Micro niche. Yeah. So we've got 5 industry segments. Which is biotech, medtech, pharma, CDMO, and private equity.
Nice.
And then we've got 5 practice segments as well. So it's like a matrix.
Yeah.
So you'll have somebody that's in a particular practice, in a particular industry, and now we've opened offices in Switzerland and New York, and so we're also regionalizing within that as well. So it's a sector, a skill type, a region.
So it's not, hi, it's Andrew here from FDI, we're a specialist life sciences business. It's, hi, it's Andrew here from FDI, we're a specialist life sciences business, particularly focused in the biotech. We're dealing with the likes of Biotech 1, Biotech 2. I've got your CV in front of me, exactly the sort of CV that a few of my clients would want to see. My objective is to get you in front of them. Tell me about your time there. It's kind of that extra layer of kind of
specialism
is what you want, right?
But also from a value proposition point of view, like TA directors have got more capability than ever before.
Right.
If all we are generalists chucking out LinkedIn email, where's the value?
It infuriates me, that kind of stuff. And then people wonder where they go wrong.
There's no value. If you can't differentiate between them doing themselves and what you can do, you're in trouble.
But also going back to the BD thing, right? I think that surely we have to have the mindset that recruitment is sales. I don't care what anyone says, but I'm always BDing in different formats, whether I'm doing a post on LinkedIn or commenting or this concept of I'm a delivery person, I can't BD, I think is bullshit, because you're speaking to candidates day in, day out. And as you know, a CV is enriched with business information. So even if you've got this 180 model and delivery model, I still think you need to encourage those individuals to be getting information.
Of course. Yeah, 24/7. And I try and get down to the point that like every conversation should have a commercial edge or outcome.
Yeah.
Because even if you're arranging interviews with a client, we should be asking what's next. Sell when it's going well.
Right, absolutely.
What's next? Why are we waiting to the end of the process to ask what's next?
Yeah.
Even if I'm arranging an interview and speaking to a candidate, I might want to identify who their boss is from that conversation.
100%.
Because we know there's going to be a gap there soon because it looks like they're going to get this job. Like every single, I think what you were a big biller, and I think, Tom Dove, who's one of our founders, big biller, really good. I think what you guys do well and what we want to teach people is the joining the dots, right?
Yes.
We never went, okay, I'm now BDing for an hour.
No.
It's like, I'm BDing.
Yeah, everything. I bleed BD. Yeah.
It's like everything's BD.
Yeah, it's true.
But I don't like stop and go, okay, now I'm going to go and sell something. It's like everything I do today is going to be with a view to delivering customer success and a pipeline of opportunity.
Oh, it's 100%. Like it's a bit like a qualified candidate isn't someone that can do the job or is capable. A qualified candidate is someone who can do the job, is available, will take it, but also will not take anything else. You've got where else they're interviewing, who they report to. You've got leads, so you're covering every facet. And I tried to teach this to a client a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, you've now you're about to place this individual there. Have you got the names of the three other places he's interviewed at, the companies, and are you going to spec in candidates? Oh, no, I can't do that. That's against the partnership kind of methodology. Well, he's going to accept your job. There's 3 leads there. Ask him. It's that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes the candidate will introduce you to them.
Yeah. If you do it in the right way. But also about maximizing opportunity. So if you put a candidate into a great organization for an interview, why can't you send that candidate to 4 other competitors as well and maximize your, I think that's what it's about, particularly in this market where people are saying it's a difficult market. But if you was to ask me one measure apart from CVs and interviews, how many conversations, how many leads are you getting on a consistent basis? If that's low, I call it a traffic light system. How many, you might have jobs on, but how many orange clients have you got where there's something coming up? How many how many have you got in your pipeline? What's behind what you're doing? You've got to keep stoking the fire, haven't you, mate?
You certainly have. Yeah. So we run off of 2 funnels.
Right.
We have a relationship funnel and an opportunity funnel.
Okay.
So the opportunity funnel is about going from a live lead to a qualified lead to a pitch to a proposal to a win.
Okay.
That's the opportunity funnel.
That sounds good.
And at any point in time, we're looking at the value of opportunity that every consultant's got in each part of that funnel.
Yeah.
And a relationship funnel is about taking someone from unknown through to contact, through to customer, through to champion, and actively nurturing those relationships through that funnel as well.
Right.
Now, naturally, the people you're nurturing through those relationships feed into your opportunity funnel.
Yeah.
But it's taking an active approach to that relationship management with people.
I love this kind of stuff. It's how many touch points and the types of touch points we're having, I think, isn't it? As well?
And the relationship funnel, we've got 20 touch points as part of the playbook. Different things at different times.
Because I love this. I love the whole. There's lots of stuff like Clay and all these automation tools, and see, I think they're brilliant. But I've gone a deep dive into some of my client stuff, and if you're sending 12 emails. And your competitors are sending 12 emails. There's 144 emails. And I think you've got to, if you're doing sequencing and automation, you have to have human touch points. You have to mix it up a little bit. Because the danger of too much AI and automation and stuff like that, I think the best way to get business information sometimes is there's tools out there that can identify hiring managers for you and do all that kind of stuff for you. That's great. But if you're not training your consultants to get that information, it's about converting that information. So I think AI and tech gets you to candidates and opportunities more quickly and clients more quickly, but you still have to have salespersonship to turn that into a sale.
Totally agree. So we're doing loads in AI and automation.
Yeah.
We've got a head of growth who we've hired who is nerding out on it all.
Yeah.
He's created a number of custom GPTs and is looking at an integrated automation strategy.
Yeah.
But all of that is to double the amount of human interactions we have rather than replace it.
There we go.
It's taking everything away other than the human bit.
To create more opportunity and time for you to get your sales
That's it.
on.
That's how it works. So the relationship funnel touch points aren't automated. They're human things.
Yeah.
So it's things like one of the touch points is if somebody is a prospect, introducing them for a non-recruitment focused networking meeting with one of your clients.
Yeah.
So you're joining up people in the industry to spend time together. So
brilliant.
Their view of you is, okay, this guy's connected, but also you're getting a peer who you've been successful with talking to someone that you want to be successful with. So it's all a little bit like we've got 20 little bits and bobs like that where you move people through from unknown to champion and they're all human. They're not tech.
What do you think the future is of recruitment? Because I think job boards, and then it was the internet. Every new thing that comes in, people get the fear, and I think AI has almost been the worst one, where people are. But I don't think it's as bad as what people are making out. But I do think it's going to replace a lot of average recruiters. Actually, and it's going to. What do you think? What's the landscape looking like in terms of the positives and maybe even negatives of AI in recruitment?
Yeah, as I say, I see it as a positive because I think it's going to increase profitability. And I think it's going to allow us to double down on the human elements of what we do.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing it through a very positive lens.
Yeah.
Quite genuinely.
Okay.
I'm not worried about being replaced. I still think that human. The more you push someone tech, the more people crave human interaction. I remember when we started on LinkedIn, quickly there was the automated outreach stuff that would send people a connection, and then the moment they connected, send them a message, and then send them another message, and that kind of thing. And then our data showed that actually the LinkedIn contacts then pushed in the opposite direction. Yeah. So we A/B tested sending invites with texting them and sending invites without texting them. And you'd think the one with texting them would be better received because it's more tailored. Actually, the one with no text had double the acceptance rate because they knew it wasn't AI. They knew it wasn't automation. They knew it was a human because
totally, 100%.
Everyone else was sending these text ones and then hitting them up and trying to sell them.
I think it goes through into communication in general. I think that I think there were studies around. I think a voice note is 67% more likely to get a response rate versus a text message because it's all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the businesses I work with, they seem to be doing everything on Slack or Monday, and I think that's a helpful tool. But if you're only communicating via technology internally, guess what? Your people externally will be communicating externally like that. So I think how you communicate internally plays a big part in how you communicate externally as well. And I think that leaders need to be aware that if you can have a meeting in person or on a Zoom or on a phone call versus anything else, I think communication is such an important facet in all sorts of business contexts.
People are craving that human touch. The more it goes, the more digital the world gets, the more we crave. Very basic human things. I've got mates who are doing like river swimming and stuff, right? Like meditating, like all these like ancient human endeavors, and that's fascinating because the more digital we get, the more everyone's leaning into fundamental.
It's almost going full circle, isn't it? In a way,
it'll be dual. It'll be dual, and the most successful organisations will find a way to be both highly digital enabled but highly human centric at the same time.
So, mate, you're a top quality leader, recruiter, or a great track record. You come across brilliantly. You've got 100,000 followers. You've got a book. You've done some stage work. You've done loads of stuff, right? So, what was it about FDI? Because you probably could have picked what you wanted to do to an extent in terms of what was it about them?
I wasn't looking. About them? So again, head, heart, and wallet. Right. Always comes back to those three things for me. From a head point of view, they were we have expanded the services beyond search into broader professional services.
Right.
So we have additional offerings in the attraction phase, the assessment phase, the onboarding phase, and the retention phase.
I love that. I think that's a big play. A lot of agencies don't see. Just go into a bit more detail. What types of services are there that you've got there?
Yeah. So from an assessment point of view, we help people become destination employers via content for candidates and employer branding.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's our attraction service. In the assessment phase, we've got a mixture of in-house playbooks, but also some technology that looks at helping uncover the right leaders and culture. We've got onboarding coaches that get people up to speed quickly. And in the retention phase, we've got a partnership with a employee listening and engagement platform that helps you get a feel for where you're at and hold on to the superstars once you've hired them. Because hiring is, our core business always will be. Search will always be our core business. It's only one part of the overall equation. So you're just getting sticky with clients in a far less transactional way.
So you're kind of diversifying your services within the same sphere, which is quite clever because, the hiring, you call it the talent war, the talent crunch.
Yeah.
What do you mean by those statements?
Yeah. So the talent crunch is kind of the narrative we've tried to own in the last 3 years in our space.
Yeah.
That was part of my original strategy, was that was going to be the thing that we spoke about.
Yeah.
So the talent crunch is why I'm also very excited about the future for recruitment and search. So there's a number of dynamics at the moment that are causing a lack of talent in key areas. Number one, self-employment's doubled in the last 10 years.
Right.
Okay. So people like you have gone from being, on salaries to working in the freelance economy, the portfolio careers,
solopreneurs,
fractional, plural careers. We're seeing a load of different things. We're seeing people come straight out of university and become a founder. They're not doing their time in a big company. They're just going, I'm going to be a founder. This is what I want to do. So one of our biggest talent competitors, no matter what industry you're in, one of your biggest talent competitors right now is people doing it for themselves.
Sure,
So
right.
self-employment's doubled.
Got you.
So that's reducing the amount of available talent that's in the market.
That makes
We've
sense.
also got the aging workforce that we've spoken about before. That's a major problem. So particularly in Europe, we have a net 10 to 20% reduction in workforce coming over the next 5 years.
Oh, wow. Right.
Because we're having less children and we're having them later in life. So the baby boomers are all retiring and there's nowhere near enough 18 to 25-year-olds coming through the system in order to fill that gap in the workforce.
So there's less people.
Less humans.
Right.
Yeah. We've got a supply problem in terms of humans. Now, AI and automation will fill some of that gap, but it won't be enough. And that is also driving global competition because country by country is very aware of this. And you go, South Korea has got a 0.7 birth rate. Like that is... like that is such a major strategic challenge for them. No surprises that they're doing fast track visas for life science professionals at the moment, trying to get expats out there, right? So we've got more people than ever retiring and not enough people coming through. The people that are coming through, twice the amount of people are choosing to work for themselves rather than work for us or work for other employees.
Yeah, of course.
That's a major squeeze. And we've also at the moment got this change, which is called the big stay. So post-pandemic, we had the Great Resignation, where everyone, kind of reviewed where they were at with their career and left. Because of all the uncertainty in the market, because of the geopolitical situation and various other things, in most major markets, we have the opposite challenge right now, which is being called the big stay, which is that people are very risk averse.
Yes.
They're not applying for roles at the level that they're used to. People in jobs are 40% less likely to be open to moving than they were.
They just want the stability because the economy is not very great.
Just feels comfy.
Yeah.
I'll spend my time here and I'll take stock in the future type thing. So that combination of not enough people, more people working for themselves, people staying put and being risk averse, that means that you couldn't make a better macro situation for headhunting.
Also, they've changed the game a little bit more. You can't not I advocate this, but you can't dispose of people easily now. Is it a 2-year thing now or a year? You can't do anything unless they've done something really bad. Yeah,
2 years. It's not certainly not.
So people aren't moving. There's no kind of like
No, there's no replacement stuff going on. So all of that puts tremendous pressure on organizations. They've got to somehow work that Rubik's Cube and make it line up. And they're not going to be able to do it on their own. They're going to need data, insights, headhunting. They're going to need to be treating talent more strategically and viewing it as and a lot of the businesses that fail because of people now. They're not failing because of product.
No.
They just can't hold on or recruit the right people.
Yeah, as we know, it's not just hiring them. It's building that sort of career plan and the retention, the development,
culture,
that kind of stuff, isn't it? But how do you think what are the best ways to actually assess a candidate? I know that's quite a broad question, but you can ask the questions and that they fit in with our the archetype, or they fit in with my values, but they don't really go in any depth, do they? How do you really understand? What do you think we can do to assess candidates better?
We've got to make the assessment as correlated to the job they're interviewing for as possible.
You just make it sound so simple.
Well, it is. Because, for example, if you're interviewing an analyst, analysts will typically not be great at selling themselves.
I love this. It's
not
so
great
obvious.
at telling stories.
Do situational based stuff, right? As opposed to
exactly. Like you've got to make the assessment as close to the job as possible. Traditional interviewing works for extrovert people doing particular types of jobs.
But it's almost like you're in a court of law. You're trying to catch somebody out in an interview. I mean, what benefit is that? Why don't you get out? I think I've seen you say this actually. Get out on a whiteboard and put a problem.
We recommend it all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So problem solve in real time around a real life problem and check each other's chemistry, check each other's cognitive thought process. So the closer it is, the better. That's what we're working on. And I think also, technology does have a place in assessment as well. Behavioural testing, looking at values assessment, these types of things I think are interesting areas.
Okay. Let's go to personal brand, mate. We're kind of coming towards the end. It's been fascinating. It always is with you, mate. 100K followers. Talk to us about that journey. You exploded on LinkedIn. I think you're 108,000, God knows now. You're one of the most followed people in the space, actually. What was that journey like? Because for me, I've got a decent following, and I'll be honest with you, for a couple of years, it went to my head a little bit, and I got entrenched in it. I got almost addicted to it, and now I'm kind of I'm not judging my self-worth on the followers now. I'm kind of, in a way, I'm quite detached from it. So I've been in love with LinkedIn, out of love with. Now I'm quite ambivalent. What's your journey been?
I think that's healthy, right? I think that's healthy. I've definitely been addicted to it at points as well. There's no getting around it. But I mean, for me, it's been a really enriching journey. I just started putting videos up, walk and talk videos up.
I love those.
6 or 7 years ago. And all I thought was that I wanted to share the conversations that I was having individually at scale.
Well, that was generally, I think your intention was genuinely to add value.
For sure.
The main reason why you not won, but you did well, doing well.
Yeah. So we did that. And, for us, the live broadcasting stuff went very well as well.
Yes.
That was a major thing for us, and getting picked up by LinkedIn as a result of all of that was a major thing for us. But no, I think personal branding has gone, from an ego-driven activity to something that is a bit of an imperative. I think most leaders need to be thinking about it.
Yes.
When we are headhunting people, they are Googling or looking on LinkedIn at the person that runs the company.
Yeah,
before
people join people, not businesses.
all the time.
Yeah.
All the money's going into employer branding.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, people don't trust employer branding because it's not
and they focus on, let's get our company page up and ready. No, let's get our individual pages
active.
up. Yeah.
Get our individuals active. So I think it's an imperative. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I get grief for it all the time from mates and things. You've got to get used to that. I've had my occasional trolls like everybody else has.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, it created an inbound business for me. It's something that clients talk to me about all the time, and I think it helps me stand out.
See, I think that's right. I think for people like you who and me who kind of are on LinkedIn to get a certain type of clients, I think it works really well. But where I'm struggling with it in terms of having a personal brand for the average or archetypal recruitment consultant, how can they leverage that without it being, because is the average hiring manager, is the average candidate going to come to you as a recruitment consultant because you've got a personal brand more? I think it's less of a need for that, would you say, in that equation, or not? Or am I wrong with that?
Well, I don't know. If you're a senior consultant with 2 or 3 years experience and you email someone and when they click on your profile to see if they reply to the email, if you've got content there that shows an expertise, if you've got recommendations there that show happy customers, if you've got a narrative that shows a specialism, I don't see that having anything other than a positive effect.
I think the starting point, and I'm shocked by this, the amount of unoptimized LinkedIn profiles that there are as a recruitment consultant. I'm a specialist IT recruiter, like really generalist. I haven't even got a banner. There's no about section. At least get that right.
Yeah, of course. And the recommendations are important.
Yes.
People cringe at them, and I understand that. But the data shows, I've sat down with the LinkedIn product team and looked at this, that people spend more time, if they're on your profile for more than 5 seconds, the time they spend in most areas is recommendations. We use online reviews and social proof to make decisions. So I mean, I think for outreach to candidates, it works. It definitely attracts client interest. I always link in with clients that I'm lined up to pitch to.
Of course.
Because I know over the preceding 2 or 3 days prior to me turning up and pitching Fraser Dove, that they're going to be seeing me in their feed. Because LinkedIn pushes, when you make a new connection, it pushes your content to them earlier. So they would have already started to go, well, this guy's talking some interesting, hopefully. Maybe not. But this guy's talking some interesting stuff, doing some interesting thing. Like, hopefully by the time you get, and quite often I'll get on the call and they'll go, hey, that was an interesting post you did last week, or whatever it might be. It's soft also, branding.
For you personally, your brand's been amazing in terms of your client inbound stuff, but I think it's enabled you to get on stages and, you've been on TV. And also you've written a book.
All off the back of that personal brand. And we're still doing speaking now. I was a guest lecturer at London Business School the other day talking about career habits and what really goes on in the hiring process and things like that. I mean, what a joy, like someone like me from Pompey getting invited into London Business School.
You're a Pompey fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Okay. To
you made that on a podcast. You're right.
Top MBA students. It's wild.
I'm in the midst of writing a book. What was the process? Exciting. What was the process like for you writing that book? Because I think that's a big achievement in itself. Actually,
much harder than I expected. It's a big thing to chew off, isn't it? So my process was like you. I already had a load of content that I'd posted. Blogs I'd written, videos I'd done, etc. So my process was to go and get all of that content and then try and organize it into topics. So that I had the basis of it. But that's really only one part of the journey, as you know, because then you're into editing and flow and structure and all of that. But I'm so pleased that I did it. I'm so pleased that
for me, it's I'm still writing it. It's been launched in 2 months. It's helped me enormously, actually, in terms of. It was almost like a self-development book. By doing it, I was developing myself, actually.
Yeah, Yeah, you do. Yeah. So. Well, you remind yourself of a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, the book, I get spoilt with messages genuinely about people that are reading that. It's sold thousands of copies all over the world. It's, got loads of really good Amazon reviews and things. I'll just get messages. Hey, I've just read your book. I've just got hired. You don't know me. I'm in South Africa, but I just wanted to say cheers. And it's that. I always reply saying, thank you, because it just lights you up.
That's brilliant, mate. Let's talk a bit more about you before we kind of go in terms of like you as the man, who Andrew is. But I think we'll start with what's been your best. You've achieved a lot. What's been your sort of highlight? Your best thing you would point to, or 2 or 3 things? Would you say?
A highlight in terms of achievement is raising a 12-year-old and 9-year-old who I'm proud of, who and who seem to like to spend time with me.
Right.
So, like, I think that underneath everything, this is the purpose-driven podcast. There's no doubt that we're fathers, we're role models to some extent, and that I'm really, really proud of my little gang, and they mean the world to me. So.
Amazing.
Certainly that for sure. But the other proud, like I really like developing people as well. And a lot of people that I've worked with at different points, not due to my input solely at all, but there are a lot of people I've worked with at different points who've gone on to become founders, who've gone on to become CEOs, who are now leaving me for dead, quite frankly, in terms of their career trajectories. Okay. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's what a nice legacy.
I think that's brilliant. Obviously, your kids and your wife is a big part of your purpose. But in terms of the purpose, then would you say that kind of that the impact you're having on others, is that an intrinsic part of your own individual purpose? Would you say? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm at my most purposeful when I'm being a guide. A guide. Wow. So whether that's guiding people through job searching or guiding young people through our industry and learning it as they go.
I think that's
being
brilliant.
A guide is probably the word I would use to describe it.
One of the traits that you've got, and you've got loads, is I think you're very humble, and you've got lots of humility, and I think you've achieved quite a lot. And I think people look up to that, and that's leadership in itself. Actually, what would you say your Achilles heels have been in the past, and what Achilles heels do you have now?
Yeah, so lots. My biggest Achilles heel is execution.
Right.
So I am good at strategy.
That surprises me, actually.
Yeah, but it's because I get excited by the next idea.
Right.
So I've always had to hire and work with people that are really strong on the execution side. Right. Because I will naturally be on to the next idea or be trying to come up with the next creative
that's awareness and acceptance, which is, again, important, right?
This took a while to get there, but you have to, right? So, I mean, at the moment, I'm the CCO. We have a managing director called Louise. Shout out, Louise. We have a great working relationship, and we dovetail brilliantly because she is absolutely fantastic. And she can do commercial herself, no problem. But she's very, very good on process, very, very good on keeping the beat of the organisation, following up on have people done what they said they were going to do? Have we implemented that project in the way that we said? And so that's because definitely
you're
my
just not wired by that. You haven't got the time, inclination, or capacity. You just end up getting frustrated.
It doesn't
swear at them. Yeah, it's not your thing.
It doesn't light me up.
I think that's how I built my business. I was the kind of the visionary kind of ideas man, the driver. But without my COO, none of it would have got done.
It's not real, yeah. So that is the thing that I've always had to be aware of and work on, and try and get to a base level where it's not damaging for the people around you.
What about outside of work then? Both of those questions.
Outside of work, let's see. I think fitness, like health and fitness, is a constant battle for me. Right. I do like Guinness. That's a problem. But But health and fitness it's weird how you can have like discipline in certain areas of your life and not in others, I think.
Because we've talked about life harmony before, haven't we?
And that blend,
Yeah. How are you getting on with that?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I took up tennis 18 months ago, which has been amazing.
Oh, not paddle like everyone else, actual tennis.
Yeah, actual real tennis. There are paddle courts at the club and I have played paddle, but I'm not trendy enough for that, I don't think.
I've never played paddle. I've always wanted to play paddle, but anyway.
Well, I think good crack. I like paddle, but yeah, tennis. So I've really got into that. So that's been good for me in terms of having something for me that is an exercise, an outlet. It's a healthy thing.
It's so important. The biggest issue I'm finding with my COOs isn't necessarily operations, branding, all that stuff. It's actually their own time management and their ability to weave in things like gym, personal training, or that. I think those kind of things are just for us as executives. Is those kind of things are just as important as the next business task. And I think in this day and age, if you haven't got that in your life, you obviously burn out and all that kind of stuff.
It's pure escapism, mate. Like I played for 2 hours last night in a ladder match. I'm in like a ladder comp in the club.
Yeah.
And for those 2 hours, I wasn't thinking about anything other than the game.
Yeah.
It's meditative. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, health and fitness. I'm still. I enjoy life, right? I think
of course.
That's the thing.
Why not?
And so I'm not obsessed with it, but I'm very aware at my stage of life, like I admire the fact you've just done marathon and things like that. I said to you, you're looking fit and all too.
Thank you.
In the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to make sure, I want to make sure, not I need to, that's negative. I want to make sure that I'm looking after myself appropriately as well.
But I think, because we're kind of coaches, leaders, managers, whatever, and I think we give out a lot of advice. I think that I've always had coaches around me, and I think that's one of the things I think you're only as good as the people around you, and I think sometimes you need. I think as a good leader tells someone what they need to hear, but also I think if we're only giving out advice to others and not getting anything from other people, that can be quite dangerous as well. So
yeah, well, and that's absolutely right. And I think when you define your value by how much you're helping people,
right,
you can often forget to help yourself in amongst all of that.
So true.
So that's the gap.
I see that a lot on LinkedIn where people are doing it and they're getting the likes and everything else, but the advice they're giving is so written for themselves. And if I heeded half the advice I gave out, I'd probably be a billionaire and be Zen and a yoga master or something.
It's the best content. It is the best content. So yeah, definitely still work in progress, loads to go at. But generally happy. I'll try not to beat myself up too much about it, because I think we can be that inner critic.
Yeah, right.
Whilst it can be a good driving force, you got to give yourself a break. Like, I'm enjoying it. Just keeping all the plates spinning, learning all the time, and we'll keep cracking on.
Okay, and just before we go, then, in terms of like, we're both middle-aged men, we're both in our prime.
Yeah,
one of those statements is true.
I'll take prime.
What can men do more to help women, and what can women do more to help men in this kind of quite difficult, challenging landscape we're living in at the moment? Would you say?
Yeah, well, I think what can men do more to help women? That is a really interesting one. And are you asking holistically or from a work?
I think more. I think that there's been a lot of debate about women having less advantage or less opportunity than men. A lot of debate about men feeling unheard. The CEO that was crying, people a couple of years ago, people were taking the piss out of him, that kind of stuff. I think I've seen things change. I think I've seen a lot of women demonizing men. I've seen a lot of men demeaning women, and I think how can we kind of collaborate a bit more and to help each other?
I think what I've learned is we've got way more in common than we have different anyway, and so I don't really find the stereotypes that helpful.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like we're almost forcing polarity where we don't need to.
No,
kind of thing, right?
No. And yeah, I mean, we run a women in life sciences group called Lift Up.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had 8 women in the company who got together and started that movement 18 months ago. It's blown up. I've been heavily involved with that.
Wow, nice one.
Male allyship and things like that. So there's definitely... I think there's definitely something about inclusivity in terms of how men can help women. That's for sure. And that's because quite often and typically the women are taking up more of the caregiving duty.
Yeah.
Which is a massive sacrifice, in fairness. Like Zoe, my wife, used to be my boss.
Right.
And our careers tracked pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
In terms of we both became directors within our industry. She's in finance. I'm in recruitment around a similar time.
Yeah.
When we moved to Australia, I was an MD. She was a GM of a cosmetics company, right?
Yeah.
The moment she had children, it's like her career just went on hold. She took part-time jobs, which were actually full-time in nature, and burnt her out. She never felt like she could be everywhere at once. And my career continued to go and build, and hers stagnated at the point that she had children. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong, by the way, with being a full-time mother. I think that's something that should be celebrated as well.
Yes.
But my point is that there is a sacrifice from a career perspective that women make. And the reason that they make it quite often is because they don't feel the inclusivity in the workplace from the male colleagues to be able to do both. And I think we can do more to help with that. Women with men, I think, moving away from the the stereotypes is also important there.
Yeah.
I actually I think women can be harsher to men sometimes than men are to each other in terms of the man up stuff and that kind of
the lack of compassion almost.
Yeah. And the lack of compassion there. So as I say, I think there's some more compassion that can come in on both sides and seek to understand each other a lot more.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't think the divisiveness of the discussion is useful because I think it's our collaboration and partnership together that's built the societies, the companies, and
totally agree. We can't coexist without each other, can we?
No,
Might as well collaborate.
So let's not scrap. Let's work together. But I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I've got lots of really good women colleagues, friends.
Yeah,
really amazing partnership with my wife. Very fortunate with that.
Brilliant.
And plenty of good blokes around me too who will call me out if I'm getting too big in my boots based on LinkedIn engagement.
Just before we go, one piece of gold you could probably drop. There's so much I could offer you to ask, but I'll ask to offer you. A candidate looking for work, what's the best way he can navigate those seas? Yes.
So a candidate looking for work needs to become the CEO of their job search. So their job search needs to become their job. So if you are a project manager, project manager job search. If you're a marketing person,
love that.
Use your job search as a marketing funnel. If you're a salesperson, take yourself to market.
So you're saying don't just pick a few companies and whack your CV out.
Yeah, actually, job applications are the lowest hit rate. It needs structure, and you need to use your skills on that search. 80% of the roles at a senior level are never advertised. We're doing confidential replacements all over the place at the moment in our exec search practice. So these aren't advertised roles. You've got to apply a business, treat it as a business problem. Is what you need to do. Use your skills.
That's amazing advice, Andrew. Thank you for coming on. What a
Thanks
brilliant
for having me again.
Appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure.
Cheers.
Take care.